Disc Golf viewers, and welcome to the 8th Euro Tour of the 2023 season. This is the Alutaguse Open, played on the beautiful Mäetaguse Disc Golf Park in Alutaguse, Estonia. This coverage is brought to you by MDG Media. My name is Elias Luukkonen, and I'll be going solo today for this round 1 for the MPO feature card. Very exciting, one of my favorite events of the year. A lot of other players also loving the course, loving the event. And here's an exciting player that will show us some different lines. Nieminen. He's mostly a forehand player, which is going to be an interesting combination for this course, as I feel like it favors the backhand very much. And another Finnish superstar, Väinö Mäkelä. He has a well-rounded game, coming straight off from, I believe, a 6th place finish from the Finnish Nationals. Not what he was looking for, but looking to correct on that this weekend. And of course, the Estonian bazooka Albert Tamm. Huge arm both on the backhand and the forehand side. Some smooth putting. He has a great opportunity to absolutely rip apart a lot of these holes with that distance. And also Jakub, Semerád. We have seen him all season, you know him. Great backhand thrower, one of the best backhand drivers in Europe actually. And if he can just get those putts from inside the circle in, he's gonna be a threat to everybody on the field. And we're starting the round on a long par 3, playing 129 meters and even about 3 or 4 or even 5 meters uphill. We're not playing to this first basket, but rather to this longer basket that is perched up on the hill to the left. There is OB both long right and short left, so you need to be precise with your angle and your distance.
First on the T-pad, representing the dynamic discs and power grip, it is Nieminen.
And even though I said that Jesse is mostly a forehand player, he has a very respectable and pretty far-flying backhand. He just doesn't use it that much, usually. But here we'll have a great look at that. He's going for the conventional hyzer route here. That's just a terrible late release, challenging the right side OB. And he has gone to
Next
the OB.
On the T-pad, representing also power grip and prodigy, Väinö Mäkelä.
Pretty nervy start there from Jesse. But obviously he's not the most comfortable with the backhand. And you can kind of see it there. Väinö, I believe, before the tournament he was talking about himself being a little bit sick after the Finnish Nationals. A lot of players throughout the field, especially Finnish players, have been a little bit sick for the past couple of weeks. And Väinö said that he's gonna try to play today, and if it doesn't feel good, he's not gonna play in the second round. And that's an unfortunate start as well.
He's back in Estonia. He's representing black ink discs and landed the 64. Round of applause for Albert Tamm.
Both Jesse and Väinö kind of pushing that right side, which is easy to do. The last thing you want to do on this hole is end up short left, because then you're going to be OB and quite far ways out from the basket. And also, today there was a bit of a left to right wind on this hole, so pushing those drives even more to the right. Albert here, making sure to put some hyzer on it, but you can see even his shot is pushing towards the right side. But that's a good adjustment, putting that hyzer on it. Still within putting distance there.
And finally, rounding out our feature card, representing latitude 64, Jakub, Semerád.
Jakub must have some pretty good memories about this hole one on the Mäetaguse course, as last year he won a sudden death playoff for a USDGC spot on this particular hole. The hole was a little bit different back then, but same shape now, and you can see he knows the shape pretty well. Just a little bit short, but gonna be a good look for the birdie going up the hill. Yes, so here going back to the forehand, just trying to lay up here, or looked like almost a bit of a run. That's something you can do with that steep slope, and fading towards the slope with the forehand. But really it's a slope, even though it can be a blessing, it can also be a curse, because if you hit the basket there, you might be rolling all the way down the hill, even towards OB. So let's see how aggressive both Jakub and Albert get here from circle 2. A bit of a conservative run there, not wanting to blow past the basket, and Albert has a bit of a scarier angle even, going towards the side hill, fading down the hill. But what a putt, nice start there. Smooth putt from 12 meters. Let's have another look at that. Albert has that bit of a squat at the start of the putt, really generating a lot of powers from the legs and just pushing it out with the arm. That's the start you want, and getting this hole one is really setting up for a hot round. It's definitely not one of the easier birdies on the course. As we're gonna see par for Jakub and bogeys for both Väinö and Jesse, which obviously not the start you want, but as I said, it is one of the more difficult holes, especially one of the more difficult birdies on the course. Hole 1 actually came in as the 4th most difficult course, playing 0.1 strokes above par. And we're moving on to another tricky hole. This is definitely not as difficult as hole 1. It sets up great for a backhand turnover. Most players either going for a big backhand turnover either over the trees or through the low gap, or you can also throw a hyzer forehand through the gap. And great drives can even land near circle 2 here. I have seen multiple drives land inside of circle 2 here, giving players a chance for the eagle. But if you miss your angle a little bit, you have a high chance of fading out OB left, turning over to the OB right, or even going OB long. There's a lot of OB. Albert here with the forehand. Playing it very wide, needs to fade back in. And he has pushed it a little bit too far. But good thing for him is that the gap that you're trying to hit, the short side of the gap is considered OB, but if you go long off the gap into the second set of trees, you're in bounds. So Albert still probably has a chance for the birdie. Jakub is showing us the big turnover shot, and look at that result. He's just outside of circle 2 there, going with the huge sky turnover. That's a nice control there. He was able to get the disc to stall out at the end, which is very difficult with that angle. And yes, here, this is also pushing too far straight, but maybe with the lucky break through the trees, he might still be in the open. Which couldn't quite see that one. But it's quite common that discs go through the second set of trees on the far side of the gap, so I wouldn't be that surprised if Jesse was actually inbounds there. And Väinö going with much steeper of an angle for the turnover, and he has actually turned it over too much, too early, and has found the OB on the short right side. The rule on this hole is that any OB from the tee shot is going to this drop zone that sets you up for about a 90-meter downhill straight shot. So Väinö going with a PA3 here. Pretty routine shot, but it's definitely not easy. As Väinö has thrown a great line, but just landed about 12 meters short there. Gonna have to make a circle 2 for a par. And Jesse here from a tough position, having to try his luck going through the left side trees. And Albert here, nice position. He got a great break through the trees here. Needs to worry about the OB long a little bit, but that's a good shot. Great touch. And you can just see the wind. First round was suspected to be the windiest round of the tournament. You can just see, wow, the leaves are blowing. The flag is absolutely ripping on top of the basket. And the direction of the wind was also pretty difficult for some of these holes, especially when we're moving on to the next one. But first here, Väinö for the par from circle 2. He has that left to right wind. Gotta watch out for the drop. And he has pulled it right. Väinö Mäkelä is going to start off with back-to-back bogeys, which obviously neither of these holes are very easy. First one is actually pretty difficult, the second one is much easier. But this course as a whole is definitely one of the easier courses we play all year. It's very scoreable. As we saw Jakub getting a good birdie after the great drive and a decent layup. And Väinö here even has a pretty difficult putt coming back for the bogey. Just 5 meters, but a ripping wind. And he has actually fell out from the middle of the basket. And that's going to be a double bogey for Väinö. Albert here for birdie. Nice wind coming right behind his back. Just a straight tailwind, and that's a good putt. Starting off with 2 birdies is ideal. Even though I mentioned that it is very possible to get inside of circle 2 on this hole, there was actually no eagles throughout the first round. Just 25% of the field getting a birdie, 52 getting a par, and 23 getting bogey or above, so great scoring separation on that one. And we're moving on to hole number 3. An absolute bomb of a par 5. 318 meters. First shot you have to throw over the right side OB, just around this bush or over the bush. You can see the discs here are in the prime landing zone. If you have thrown a good hyzer off the tee, you're set up for another flat to hyzer shot. Ideally, if you have a lot of distance, you would love to get on the left side of these small, would you say Christmas trees? I think that's an appropriate way to call them. Hopefully into this wide part of the fairway that is approaching to the basket. Leaving yourself with as short of an approach as possible, because the green, even though it has a great backstop, it is sloped upwards from where you're throwing. The OB on the right and on the long or left is only about 6 or 7 meters away. So quite a lot of approaches on this hole end up a little bit short because people are scared of that long OB. And today there was a ripping headwind on this one, so players have to go with something really overstable. Hopefully not hang it out too far wide, as Albert is right on the edge there. That's a scary looking shot. I think he might have just barely made it back inbounds. And this is a beautiful line from Jakub. Just getting around the bush, perfectly on the fairway. That's what you want on this one. This hole is playing incredibly far in this headwind. A lot of the players in the field even having trouble reaching the hole in 3 shots with this wind that we had today. Obviously on our card we have some of the further throwing players off the field. So we're probably gonna have some birdie chances, but even for these guys it's definitely not gonna be an easy birdie or even an easy reach to get to the basket with 3. We saw Jesse throw a good backhand, and Väinö here with also a good backhand right in the middle. The first shot is really not about distance. You want to throw something very overstable. Hopefully just get down to the fairway. And from here it's actually a crush to get all the way to the sweet spot. And the headwind is still very strong. And Jesse here kind of pulling it to the right, but gets through, and he has actually gone to the right side OB. That is a pretty big mistake. Right side OB is very far away. You have to turn your drive, or you have to throw it very far to the right if you want to end up in the OB. And Väinö on the other hand, this is challenging the left side OB. And looks like he has actually found it. Wow, Väinö is in trouble of starting with 3 consecutive bogeys or worse. And Jakub here fixing on the other 2's mistakes. That's a good shot. Still gonna be a pretty difficult approach in this wind, but at least he has a chance. And Albert here, with by far the furthest drive, he has a chance to get just a full hyzer to the sweet spot. This is a nice looking angle here. And he has just made it past the last tree. Probably still gonna be a little bit in the swing, but that's a good chance for the birdie. Yes, so they are just pulling a big hyzer short of the green. He's gonna have to settle for a bogey. And let's see. There's a pretty strong right to left wind here, so Jakub has to play this very wide, and you can see he does. Even that very overstable disc lifting, and he has actually gone OB to the right. Wow, that is a pretty big mistake. He might have to take it pretty far back. And Jakub, from a great birdie position, is gonna be now contending with potentially even a tricky bogey. And even Albert is fading towards the right side OB. But I believe he has stayed safe there. Quite surprising here. I think the wind is really messing with these guys. As normally this approach is pretty simple, but obviously in this wind it's nowhere near simple. And Väinö here, I believe, throwing his 4th shot. Not quite sure, because his spot that he was throwing from looked to be very far down the fairway compared to where the disc went OB. But I believe he is putting for par now. As this is Jakub's 5th shot, just trying to get up and down for the bogey. Pretty well done there. And as I mentioned, there's a pretty good backstop on this hole, so even some of these longer putts or approaches can be ran pretty hard. As yes, it does there. That's a good run. Just gonna have to settle for the bogey. And Albert with the only birdie look off the card. Such a good looking release, but not quite. And Väinö here, just inside the circle, but has to go with potentially a little bit higher of a release than normal, as he has these banners right in the swing. Let's see if he's able to make the adjustment I believe this is for par. That's just not it. It's not the Väinö Mäkelä that we are used to seeing. But obviously you can't really underestimate how much the possible fever or the sickness might affect his play. As we saw Jakub with a bogey, Albert with the only par 5 of the group, and both Väinö and Jesse also getting a bogey. So a lot of trouble to be found for our feature card on this hole 3. Now moving on to one of the more technical holes on the course. It's a pretty open course for the most part, and this hole 4 is a rare short technical hole. It's only 100 meters, playing just slightly uphill. Sets up the best for a right-hand backhand flex shot, ideally with an overstable fairway driver. The green is sloping pretty hard from left to right, and if your disc lands next to the basket, you have a great chance of rolling down to the hill. So a lot of players trying to play actually a little bit right of the basket with that overstable flex shot. And Albert going for exactly that. Very nice looking line. And he has done the shot just perfectly. 6 meters to the basket. I believe that is the safest and most consistent way to play the hole. You really never know whether your disc is going to stick if you throw it next to the basket, but if you throw it right there as Albert did, it's always going to stand right there. And we know that Jakub is very comfortable with this shot, as he loves those overstable flex shots. That is also inside the circle there. Nice shot. And Jesse here, he has a couple of pretty poor backhands on the round so far. But this one looking much better. Nice looking angle. A nice skip at the end. Very good shot there. And I'm sure that's something that's going to bring his backhand confidence up to a better level. Which is important because the course really sets up well for backhand and not very well for a forehand. There's a lot of backhand shots that are incredibly difficult to throw with a forehand on this course. For example, this hole 4, and we're gonna see some more on the upcoming holes. As Väinö is a little bit short here, but still a good chance from the edge of the circle here. Important putt to get his round going, hopefully now, after the rough start. And the rough start is continuing. He has pulled it way right. And that's still a pretty difficult putt left for the par. Let's see if Jakub can fix on that. Not a very long putt, just 8 meters here, but going far uphill. And he has also pulled it to the right. I wonder if these misses are making the other players even a little bit nervous. Because I feel like that's what sometimes happens when you see the other players on your card missing. You kind of start to almost question yourself. Like, what's going on here? But let's see if Jesse can end his rough start. He's already 2 over. And he doesn't. What are we seeing here? Already 3 inside the circle misses from the feature card. And Albert with a chance to get a stroke on everybody here. And that is finally in the basket. Well done, and that's a good start from Albert. You know, the first 4 holes, especially the first 3 holes, really suit his game plan and his abilities pretty well. But 3 under through 4 is still a very good start. Not many players in the field able to acquire that sort of a start. And Väinö here, just tossing it in for the par. I'm sure he's disappointed after that birdie miss, but that's his first par of the round. And hopefully a good chance to turn things around. Jakub as well for the par, as will Jesse here. Really Albert with the only good start of the group. Even Jakub's even par through 4 is far from what you're looking for. As I mentioned, it is one of the more scoreable courses we play. And moving on to another very scoreable hole, hole 5. Playing at a downhill 217 meters. OB far on the right side and OB a little bit closer on this left side rough. What you're really trying to do off the tee is you're trying to get as much distance with keeping your disc either straight or moving just a little bit to the left. You want to get somewhere within 80 meters off the basket because this approach is very tricky, very tight. There are those 2 trees just in the middle of the gap that you have to either choose to go right off or left off. A lot of the times players not quite able to decide and just praying for some good luck and getting through the trees. But this is one of the most satisfying shots on the course. On the tee shot you just get to rip it downhill with an absolute huge hyzer flip up to flat. And that is exactly what Albert has done. Look at this drive. Beautiful shot. That has to be about 150 to almost 160 meters long. He's gonna have about 70 meters to go from there. That's a big drive. And even without turning it ever really over, compared to Jakub here, going with that signature flex shot, this is kind of challenging the right side OB, but just barely stays safe. That's a good result there and also a very nice chance for the birdie. Jesse here with another backhand. It's going to be a good chance to see some of that backhand power that Jesse has. Jesse has a lot of power on the backhand, and you can see it here. Almost matching Albert's huge hyzer with that nice skip at the end. Also just about 75 or 80 left to the basket. This hole is only the 9th easiest hole on the course. Still playing under par, so showing off just how scoreable this course is as a whole. Even the middle difficulty holes playing under par. And Väinö there inbounds, good distance. Everybody has a great chance to get that birdie. Important to put enough power on this approach. Is playing pretty steeply uphill at the end. You can see Jakub throwing it very hard here. But he has got just a terrible kick at the end. And he has actually gone OB to the right. Wow, what are we seeing? I didn't even know there was OB on the right side. Actually, if you want to find the OB, you have to go all the way down the hill. So that was a terrible break from Jakub. And as we saw, just a perfect shot from Väinö there. Not challenging any trees. That is so difficult to do on this one. And that is just a bad early release from Jesse. Tough to see from a player of his level, starting off so weak on this front nine. And Albert here. Great angle to approach from. Nice looking line. Just needs to miss the 2 trees in the middle. And he does. Inside the bullseye there. What a nice approach. And what a nice start. He's gonna be 5 under. Excuse me, 4 under through the first 5 holes. Jesse here on the left side. It's actually... There's some good gaps from this left side. He might still have a chance to give it a bit of a run. As he does! Wow! Yes, Nieminen with a birdie with an absolute disaster of an approach. But just look at this putt. It's the perfect straight line. And look at that. If that's not gonna give him a bit of a motivation boost for the rest of the round to get this round actually started, I don't know what will. That's a great one. Hopefully he can start scoring some more birdies from now on. And Jakub here also with a good run after the OB stroke. That was for par. And gonna be a pretty disappointing bogey, as this hole is also very scoreable one. Only 18% of the field getting a bogey or above. And much more, actually 30% getting a birdie on this one. It looks like a pretty significant part of that 30% is gonna be on our card, as Väinö, Albert, and also Jesse got the birdie here. And we're moving on to one of the most difficult holes on the course. Hole 6, third most difficult hole on the course, playing 0.2 strokes above par on average. Off the tee you have to throw a low hyzer shot that is moving potentially as far left as possible to really open up your angle for the second shot that is playing. You can either go for this route that the drone is going, which would be a forehand hyzer. Forehand hyzer is a nice play. You just have to contend with a couple of trees here at the end. But there's also that right side route through the trees, which plays as a straight to overstable tunnel shot. It's gonna be pretty interesting to see whether these players go for the forehand or the tunnel shot, as we have a lot of different skill sets on the card. Albert here kind of pulling it to the right of the tee. There is OB on the right side, but he actually got a nice break there, able to fight through the branches on the right side, and he's in birdie position there. And that is a nice backhand from Jesse. Also pushing the right side a little bit, but he's in the middle of the fairway there. And on this one there was also a headwind slightly from left to right, so making the shot even more difficult. Not too difficult for Väinö though, as he has thrown a beautiful hyzer through the gap. That pole that he's next to is a good marker for a big drive on this one. It's really hard to get past that pole on the first. And Jakub is challenging the right side OB after that kick. Looks like he might have actually stayed safe. If he did, that's a nice fortunate break. And yes, looks like he is safe there. That looked like it had all the ingredients for a disaster, and it still does. Jakub has kicked OB off the branch. Wow, that was really an unforced error there. But a very unfortunate break as well, as he's throwing his fourth shot there, just trying to get down the fairway as far as possible. And Jakub is likely having to settle for A double bogey. Here Jesse is going to show us the forehand route. This is a nice looking angle. He just needs to finish right. Not quite able to finish as far right as he would like, and that is going to be a difficult putt with that elevated basket. Albert also going for that hyzer route. I would think he's going to go just a full hyzer, as he does. That is looking great. Just needs to skip to the right. And both Jesse and Albert kind of doing a similar mistake. Not quite pulling it enough back to the right. And Väinö here gonna show us the tunnel shot. Beautiful drive setting up for this even more beautiful of an approach. Look at that touch. Able to go with the mid-range on this long par 4 after the first. What a nice shot. Jakub there under the basket for the double bogey. And he's gonna be 3 over through the first 6. So very tough start. And yes! What has he had for breakfast? Making 2 huge putts in a row, even in this elevated basket. It's a pretty scary putt. The grass on this green is very short. If you miss this, you're likely having almost an edge of the circle comebacker. Wow, what a putt. And some good hype from the card there. Let's see if Albert can match. This would be a great stroke. Just not quite there. Not quite able to keep up that great start after 5 holes. And Väinö now kind of getting his game together. Getting the second birdie in a row. Jakub with a double bogey. And Albert with just a par. Wow, that was some good action on that hole. We're gonna be moving on to another more technical ones off
I
the
just
front
think the
nine.
plastic is very premium.
I think it's the quality of plastic.
It's unlike any other plastic that you'll find in the industry.
It's something I can consistently trust.
You're gonna want to put multiple discs in your bag.
You can only say so much where they have to eventually just try it themselves and see.
And we're moving on to a nice technical tunnel shot here, hole 7. 118 meters, so it's definitely not a short hole. Most players have to throw either a very hard throw in mid-range, or more realistic option is to just throw a nice medium speed fairway driver. It's a perfectly straight shot, really nothing to it, or nothing else to it. Difficult shot, obviously the most difficult shot in disc golf is to go perfectly straight for this. Almost 120 meters. Yes, going with forehand. There is OB on the right side, which kind of scares me for this forehand. But looks like he's got the angle down really good. Just pushing it too far left at the end. That was looking beautiful, but the forehand taking a little bit more space than the backhand here. As we're gonna see from Väinö, who is going with the mid-range here. That's a nice angle, just a little bit short on the left side. This hole is kind of on the edge of what a mid-range can reach, even for some of these furthest throwing players in Europe. You kind of have to push the ceiling with the mid-range. And Albert here, going very low. Not quite hitting the angle, but that is a great roll. Rolling almost 10 meters towards the basket, and he's gonna have a good look from circle 2 there. You might see the other rings on the ground, or the other circles. They are for the FPO basket that is about 10 meters shorter than this one. And Jakub there, turning towards the right side OB, the same OB that he actually found on the last hole. Just on the opposite side for this one. But he got a good break there to stay inbounds and even for a long chance. And Jesse there, not quite able to keep up his hot streak of those circle 2 putts, but gonna be just an easy par for him. Let's see if Albert can make this though. From 15 meters. And what a nice putt there. Look at that. Beautiful start of going 5 under through 7 holes. He's really setting up for a great round here. As looks like Albert got a pretty calm moment in the wind. The flag not really moving that much. It was pretty windy for the majority of the day. So that's nice to take advantage of the calm moment. And Väinö, let's see if he can do the same. For the 3rd birdie in a row. A little bit hesitant looking putt there, not quite getting it up over the rim. Gonna be just some short par putts left for Jesse here. And just barely hangs on to the left side. Good catch there by the basket, not to go over par through 7 holes. And Väinö and Jakub just with a tap in here. What a beautiful hole this is, just a great par 3. It's pretty rare to see such a good par 3 as this one, as it is just beautiful to play. Pretty good scoring separation, playing right at about par for the average. I'm talking about beautiful holes. This is another one of those, hole 8. On this one you really get to rip it out from the tee. It's 250 meters par 4 and the drive sets up perfectly for a huge distance turnover Anheuser drive. With a distance driver, players are trying to get upwards to 150 meters from the tee, even more possibly if you have a great wind and a great angle. And from there, you're left with a choice. You can either go for this drone flight with a forehand or a wide roller, but more commonly we see people trying to just hit the gap through the trees on the final shot. Let's see if these guys can hit some bombs off this tee. And yes, they can. This looks like an absolute huge drive. Wow, look at that from Albert. I believe that is pushing almost 170 meters. And he's gonna have a pretty manageable approach from there. Jesse also showing some of that backhand power. Looks like a great angle here. And he's getting all of the flight on this one. What a great one there. He's also got a lot of distance there. And Väinö going for a bit of a lower line compared to Jesse and Albert. And you can see the difference there, not quite getting that fade back. Gonna have a significantly longer approach to the green. Which I believe that's what makes this hole difficult to birdie. You almost always have a very long approach. Unless you throw a drive like this. Look at that. Big drive from Jakub. I'm sure he really loves this hole as he gets to put a lot of anhyzer on the disc. I believe Väinö probably the only one with more than 100 meters left to the basket. He has to go for a nice straight flip-up shot here. And the angle is looking great, just needs to go. Couldn't quite see the disc land there, but I believe Väinö is gonna be putting, but just a little bit short of the basket. And Jakub actually, surprisingly going for the forehand here. But he's going for the inside forehand. And that is also a little bit short, but well within putting distance. Pretty surprising to see Jakub go with the forehand here, as he's more of a backhand player. And Jesse looks to be lining up that wide forehand. This shot is very difficult to get within park distance, but nice shot there, getting it inside the circle. That was pretty much the perfect shot. You can't really get it closer with the forehand as the line is so wide. You have to hang it out all the way around that last tree. And Albert probably going for the same route here. This looks to be a little bit inside, as he has hit the branches but got a pretty good kick through. And Albert is going to be on the edge of the circle for another birdie. So everybody putting for the birdie now. Väinö here first from just outside the circle. And not quite there. He has once again pulled it right. Seems to be a pretty consistent issue with this putt right now. And Jakub there also not quite getting it. We're counting down the birdie chances here as it is Albert next from just inside the circle. Having to go with the straddle. Luckily he's pretty comfortable with the straddle normally. And that's a nice birdie there. Going 6 under on the round. And if he wasn't doing it before, at last, now he's definitely setting up for a great, great round. The course is a little bit different this year than last year, as we see Jesse putting in that birdie. And even last year with the slightly easier version of this course, the course record was only at 12 under. And I believe also the course record for this version of the course made by, I feel terribly sorry for forgetting the guy's name, but a local great player also shooting a 12 under on this version of the course. So Albert very much in pace to even match the course record right now. If he can just keep shooting these birdies like he's had so far. Väinö and Jakub there with the good par cleanups, and Jesse and Albert gonna take the nice birdies. Nice to see Jesse also under par. Finally 1 under through 8 holes. And he's coming back, still has a chance to shoot a respectable round. As we're moving on to actually another one of these slightly more technical holes. It's definitely still not tight, the gap is very big here. It's actually an island hole. You have to hit this island off the tee, otherwise you will have to proceed to the drop zone. Pretty easy shot for most of these players, but what makes it difficult is the wind. It plays really good for a straight shot, and some players even going for a big spike hyzer over the right side. Looks like that's what Albert is doing. This is a nice play, but it has to miss a couple of trees at the end. And Albert there, what a great break. He was challenging the left side OB, but hits the last tree on the left side and has stayed safe. That might potentially be a 2-stroke difference, because the drop zone is pretty far away, and while it's a makeable putt, it's definitely not a putt you see made pretty often. And Jesse going with the signature Harp forehand. Beautiful shot that looks super easy. And I would expect the same from Väinö, as he's normally very accurate with these standstill putter shots. And just look at that angle. What a beautiful shot with the PA3. That's perfect, just 5 meters away. Everybody inbounds so far, and Jakub is also gonna try this hyzer route. I believe today was even a little bit more difficult than normal, as the wind was pushing from right to left with a bit of a headwind as well. So this looks to be a little bit left as well. Couldn't quite see it land. No, it's actually, yeah, just a few meters left of the basket there. Inside the circle, almost in the bullseye. Nice shot from Jakub. Very overstable disc from him to get it to spike down like that. Oh, and what an unfortunate bounce out from Albert. That was really a coin flip whether it was in the basket or not. And he's gonna have to settle for still a great 6 under front 9. I was almost hoping we would have a chance for the star frame on this one to finish the front 9. As what has happened? Jesse made the putt, hit the chains, got the disc to the bottom of the basket, but it has somehow slid out, back over the rim. Wow, I have seen such a reaction very few times throughout my career. That is just incredibly unfortunate. This basket just not accepting discs right now. But fortunately for Väinö, his disc is accepted inside the basket with a good tap in there. And Jakub, with a great use of that super overstable disc, able to avoid fading out too far left with that hyzer, and he's put himself in the basket for an easy birdie. Wow, I'm still just mind blown with how Jesse's disc actually came out of the basket. It looked like he was hitting the low left side chains perfectly and staying inside the basket, but nothing really you can do about that. That is gonna be a wrap for the front 9. Taking a look at the top 10, Albert Tamm with that 6 under leading the field. But pretty tight after that. Within a couple of strokes there's a lot of players. Mauri Wilman, Morten Brenno, both with a great 5 under front 9. A bunch of players, Daniel Davidsson, Blair, Silver, Pekka also at 4 under. This course really sets up for some tight scoring, as it is one of the more scoreable courses. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to support MDG Media on tour, as they're doing a lot of work, I can tell you guys they're working through the night every day after the tournament. If you want to support them on Patreon, feel free to do that. Don't worry, and see you guys in the next one.